How's it going, YouTube? Welcome back to your favorite aviation channel, and today we are here with a huge airport update for Doha Hamad International Airport. This is my second time trying out Doha on the channel. The first time, if you recall, was back in January of 2023. I'm going to try and do these Doha updates at least once a year. The reason is because my Qatar Airways fleet's pretty big now. It's about 18 planes. So I think that's definitely worth at least doing Doha once a year. I can't make this a regular series, unfortunately. I'll get more into that at the end of the video. But definitely once a year during my winter break period, definitely a time where I'd love to make these Doha updates a once a year kind of thing, you know. So ironically enough, despite this being pretty much the exact same setup as last time's update, this iteration turned out a lot cleaner, a lot nicer. So I'm really excited for this video. We got 40 planes in this update, definitely one of the bigger ones that I've done on the channel. I should also mention that because I don't do these Doha updates very often, there is no time frame in this update, but most of the flights that you see in this video, they're kind of based off the 7 to 8 a.m. time period. But then again, I put in literally every single airline that I had in my collection that flies to Doha. I put it in this video. So it's going to be a massive one, but at the same time, I think it'll be pretty exciting. Again, you know, you won't see all of these airlines in Doha at the same time. But I thought, you know what, I don't do these Doha updates very often. I might as well put in everything that I have. And I think you're going to enjoy this. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and show you the setup that we got. Alright, so before we get into the actual setup, I have a couple of disclaimers that I want to make regarding some inaccuracies you're going to see in this video. First of all, Hamad International is a huge airport, and I do not have the space or the resources required to replicate the full thing. You can kind of see a good example right here at Concourse B. Technically at Hamad International, every single gate is a wide body compatible gate, so all of these gates should technically be much more further spaced out, but as you can see, I don't have enough space to do that because they wouldn't be able to fit the table. So for the sake of fitting every possible gate at Concourse B and Concourse A, I just shrunk it down a little bit. So this is the correct number of gates at Concourse B, but technically these should be more further spaced apart because they are all wide body gates, so they should be much more, there should be more spacing in between them, but because I don't have actual space on the table to do that, I had to resort to just narrow body gates. But this is the correct number of gates at this concourse. Second inaccuracy is that every single gate at Doha is a minimum two jetways. So every single gate kind of looks like this. There's a minimum of 2 gates at every single gate at every single concourse. So I do not have that many jetways, so I couldn't replicate that. But compared to last year, I was able to add a couple more jetways. So at least this time, every possible gate at the terminal has a jetway, at least one jetway, which is good. It's an improvement from last year. Another inaccuracy, every single jetway at Doha is a glass jetway. It looks like this. As you can see, not all of my jetways are like that. So that's another inaccuracy. And then, let's see, what else was there? Well, compared to last year, I have some more foils. Last year, and well, not last year, earlier this year, the first time I ever did a Doha update, some of the gates didn't have like foils like you see here. But this time, every single one does, so it looks a lot more realistic. And I think this is it just kind of helps make the diorama look a lot more realistic. So yeah, I think that's all I wanted to cover regarding some of the inaccuracies. Now let's get into the setup. So just like the last time I did Doha, this is kind of the same, the Gemini Jets terminal here and then the foam and whatever. I think last time I didn't have much out here because there really is nothing I can put. It's like parking lots and drop off area. I don't know what else to put there. So this is a bit more or less the same. We got Concourse A right here. All the gates that are in Concourse A are there. So we have Concourse A, obviously. We have Concourse B like I showed you here. Moving down, Concourse C is this giant straightaway. You might recognize this wooden thing from my O'Hare Terminal 5 diorama. That's all Concourse C, and then this right here would split off into Concourse D that way, E this way. Last update for Doha that I did, I had a much bigger, I had more space for D and E. Unfortunately this year, or this time around, I for some reason didn't have enough space to put more gates for E and D. I think last time I had 2 gates here and then 2 gates there. This time I have 1, but it doesn't really matter. I did have space to put the new expanded part of Concourse E. I think it's Concourse E down here. So they added 5 new gates. This is where the new like garden thing is. I think it's called like Emerald Garden or something. That's where this is, and then they have 5 new gates that they put here. So as you can see, it's not great. They're not connected to the building. It's just like Flight Simulator X. The scenery didn't load, you understand? So yeah, but they're there. I was able to put that here. It's kind of cool. And then over here I have some hard stands. I have 2 here and 2 there, kind of like last year, or last time. I keep saying last year even though the video was literally earlier this year, but it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna keep saying last year, I guess. And then I have a taxiway as well. I think the last time I did Doha, I didn't have enough planes to actually put a replicate a taxiway, but I do have a couple more planes now, so I got taxiway there. It's kind of cool. So yeah, it's a pretty basic setup. I mean, not basic, but I did with what resources I had. I was able to just make do with what I had. This is just kind of really janky, as you can see. I just put random cardboard pieces on top so you don't see that. It's literally like hollow. Well, not hollow, but there's like a giant opening down here. So actually, I can show you. So just to cover that up, make it look a lot more uniform. Did that. So that's the setup, really. Yeah. I have literally nothing else to say. So without further delay, let's go ahead and get started with Concourse A right here, and then we'll do Concourse B, C, D, E, and we'll be done. So let's go ahead and get started with Concourse A. Alright, so the interesting thing about Concourses A and B in Doha is that most of the non-Qatar Airways flights, I don't know why this is, but most of the time non-Qatar Airways flights will arrive into Concourses A and B. I don't know why it is, but if they're not using the remote stands, chances are if you're flying like Turkish or Saudi or Ethiopian, Air India, Sri Lankan, whatever it might be, most of the time these airlines will arrive into either Concourse A or B. I don't know why it is. It's just something that I've noticed. And another inaccuracy that I forgot to mention in the previous segment is that a couple of the aircraft that you see in this video don't actually fly to Doha, but the airline does. So that's really the best I could do. So in the case here, the first aircraft with this Turkish Airlines Airbus A330-200 is pushing back with service back to Istanbul's flight 783. Turkish currently flies their A321neos into Doha, but I don't have a Turkish 321neo, so this was the closest I had, so I put the 330-200 in here to substitute. And then next up we have a Saudi A330-300, and Saudi does not fly their 330s into Doha, but they do fly the 320 and 321, neither of which I have. But this A330 came in from Jeddah's flight 542 and just attached to the jetway. And then next up we have the Ethiopian 777-200LR. This does actually fly to Doha. At the moment they have been flying the 350 the past 2 days, but before that it was a mix of 777-200LR, 7879 and 737 MAX, and A350-900. But this Ethiopian 777-200LR just came in from Addis Ababa as flight 432. We headed back out to Addis Ababa as flight 433. Next up here we have the British Airways 777-200ER, just came into the gate from London Gatwick as flight 2033. And over here is the 787-10, which just arrived from London Heathrow as flight 123. So BA is serving both Heathrow and Gatwick at the moment from Doha. Both flights are on the 777-200ER, but because I only have one, I had to put the 787-10 as a substitute. Actually from March, I believe 31st of 2024, they are actually going to be cutting the Gatwick flight. So right now it's both Qatar Airways and BA serving Doha to Gatwick. But from March, again, 31st, I believe it is, 2024, it'll just be Qatar Airways flying between Gatwick and Doha. But BA will continue serving Heathrow, of course, from Doha with the 777 from that point onwards. And then Qatar Airways will also have their 5 or however many daily flights they have between Heathrow and Doha. So it's pretty cool. Right now, both flights are in at the same time. So I believe Heathrow comes in at like 11 p.m. and then the Gatwick flight arrives around 11:45 p.m. So it's pretty cool to have both of them in at the same time. Definitely a scene that I wanted to replicate with this diorama here. All right, moving on, we have Air India. They don't fly 777-300ERs to Doha, but I don't have any other Air India planes, so This 777-300ER is subbing in for an A320. This came in from Delhi as flight 971. It's going to go back out to Delhi as flight 972. Alright, moving on, we have the first of quite a few Qatar Airways planes you'll see in this video, and the first of two A380s you'll see in this video. Qatar Airways Airbus A380 just came in from Perth, Australia as flight 901, and in about 2 to 3 hours we headed out to Paris Charles de Gaulle as flight 39. So yeah, Perth, that is a pretty interesting route for the 380. I believe they started bringing the 380 back to Perth earlier this year, 2023, and they only fly the A380 to a handful of destinations. I believe it's only 6, so London Heathrow, Paris Charles de Gaulle, Perth, I think Sydney, Melbourne, and I think Bangkok as well. So just those 6. If I missed any of them, let me know in the comments. But I think it's only those 6 places that they fly the Airbus 380 to from Doha, Qatar Airways. Pretty cool. Also, Concourse B and C, these are the only 2 concourses at Doha that I believe can handle the Airbus A380. They have the specific A380 triple jetways. As you can see, I didn't have a triple jetway here, but I do have a triple jetway at the next A380 that you'll see at Concourse C in a few minutes. So that's going to be pretty exciting to show you guys. So that's the first 380 that's going to Paris, came in from Perth, Australia. And next up is the Philippines Airbus A330-300, came in from Manila as flight 684, headed back out to Manila as flight 683. And that concludes Concourse A. Now let's go over to Concourse B. Alright, so Concourse B, first aircraft here is the Royal Jordanian Boeing 787-8. This just came in from Amman as flight 650. Of course, they don't fly the 787s to Doha at the moment. It's A320s and A319s, but this is the closest that I had. It's the only Royal Jordanian airplane that I have in my collection. Alright, moving on. This is, I don't think I showed this in the last time I did Doha. Finnair Airbus A350-900. Finnair flies to Doha 3 times a day or something like that. They have, this isn't a perfect example. You're going to see this a lot in this video. I'm going to explain all the outsourcing and stuff of routes like I briefly covered with the London Gatwick flight on British Airways. Qatar Airways, they've outsourced a bunch of routes to their One World partners and other partner airlines. This is a topic that I've covered quite a few times on this channel. But here Finnair is a perfect example of that. So they don't just fly to Helsinki, they also fly to Stockholm, and they also fly to Copenhagen, which is really, really bizarre because Finnair is of course the flag carrier of Finland, but they are serving Doha from Stockholm, Sweden, and Copenhagen, Denmark. That's pretty cool. So they fly those 3 routes every day on the Airbus A330-300. So you'll see about, I think, a minimum of 2 Finnair 330s at the same time in Doha. I can't remember if the 3rd one comes in at the same time or if it comes in at a different time of day, but I think Stockholm and Copenhagen, those flights come in around about the same time. I don't have the A330 unfortunately, so I had to put my 350 in, but this aircraft came in from Copenhagen as flight 1985. We headed out to Stockholm as flight 1984. So at the moment, Qatar Airways, they do not fly to Helsinki, they don't fly to Stockholm, they don't fly to Copenhagen as far as I'm aware, because they've outsourced those routes to Finnair. So Finnair is currently operating those. I'm not too sure how long they're going to be doing them for, but it's pretty bizarre. 3 daily Finnair flights, each from a different Nordic city into Doha. And then at the moment, the only Nordic city that Qatar Airways is serving themselves is Oslo. And we're going to see that at towards the end of the video at Concourse E. So that's Finnair done. Moving across here, Malaysia Airlines Airbus A330-300. This aircraft came in from Kuala Lumpur as flight 164, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, this aircraft came in from Kuala Lumpur as flight 164, and I believe it's flight 165 back to Kuala Lumpur. So I checked earlier today, and it looks like there are 4 daily flights between KL and Doha, 2 on Malaysia Airlines, 2 on Qatar Airways. I believe they started the flight 160 recently started getting the A350. So MH160 into Doha, 161 I believe it is back to Kuala Lumpur. That is now on the A350-900 for Malaysia Airlines, which is pretty cool. But this flight 164, 165, that is still the A330. And then Qatar Airways themselves have, I think, 2 daily flights from Doha to KL, which is pretty nice to see. Moving on, we have the Oman Air 737-800. This came from Muscat, this flight 667. We got 2 fly Dubais here. We have a 737-800. This just came in from Dubai's flight 3. Headed back out, or sorry, this is pushing back. Sorry, this is flight 2 back to Dubai. It came in as flight 1. And next to that is the 737 MAX, which came in from Dubai as flight number 3. So flight 3 arrives around 10:45 a.m. or something like that, and 11 a.m. and then I think flight 2 is around about the same time departure. So right as this flight comes in, flight 3, flight 2 is about to depart. So you usually get to see them at the same time, I would assume, in Doha. So I wanted to replicate that scene here. All right, next up, we have the Etihad Airbus A321. This aircraft came from Abu Dhabi as flight 393, headed back out to Abu Dhabi in about an hour's time as flight 394. It's in the old livery, this 321. All of their fleet, Airbus 320, 321 fleet, they are all in the new livery now. I don't have one of those, so I just have to make do with what I got, as you can see. And unfortunately, this is the only plane that Etihad retired from their fleet, the only 321 A6AEA. All the other planes, 321s in their fleet, got repainted, but this is the one plane that they didn't repaint. They retired it, sent it to a different airline. So yeah, it is what it is though. It's Etihad nonetheless. Moving on. Oh, this airplane again. It's not PIA this time. It's actually proper Middle Eastern Airlines. As you can see, it says MEA under the SkyTeam logo. So in real life, this plane actually, of course, doesn't fly for MEA anymore. It's with PIA now. But it does say MEA, so I'm going to operate it as a proper Middle Eastern Airlines aircraft because they do fly to Doha. So this aircraft is operating flight 434 just came in from Beirut as flight 434. That's Middle Eastern Airlines. I don't have the actual proper MEA livery, but it is an MEA plane, so that's why it's here. Alright, next, PIA Airbus A320. This aircraft came from Peshawar as flight 285. It's going to be operating flight 288 out to Islamabad in about 2 hours. And then last but not least, for Concourse A, we have the Sri Lankan Airlines Airbus A330-200 in the One World livery. Just came in from Colombo as flight 217. Alright, starting off with Concourse C. Just as a quick disclaimer, it's going to be overwhelmingly Qatar Airways from this point onwards, so just get ready for that. First aircraft though, we have the Airbus A350-1000. Came in earlier from Lahore, Pakistan as flight 621. Next flight is out to Los Angeles as flight 739. Over here we have a new airline for Doha, Iberia Airbus A350-900 pulling into the gate from Madrid as flight 6700. At the time of making this video, I believe Iberia began service either earlier this week or sometime last week. So they are now serving Doha. I believe it's a daily service from Madrid. Ironically enough, the service is actually on the A330-200, but the inaugural flight was operated one-off by the 350-900. So they flew the 350 on the inaugural flight. Unfortunately, the actual service is regularly on the 330-200. So I don't have the 330, but I have the 350. So that's basically all I had to use for this video. But this is another example of Qatar Airways outsourcing some of their routes to their partner airlines. Again, I don't know why they're still doing this, because Qatar Airways' fleet, it's pretty much back to what it was before. They have basically all their 350s back in service. They have a bunch of 737 Maxes. They have a bunch of new leased 777s. So I don't know why they're still outsourcing a bunch of routes. I guess it's just so they can get more of their partner airlines to serve Doha, which is good. I like that. It's a good move. That might actually be the reason. But Iberia basically is new to Doha. They have actually taken over one of Qatar Airways' existing services between Madrid and Doha. So the thing is, Madrid to Doha, that's served 3 times a day. It used to be served, all 3 flights were on Qatar Airways, flight 148, 150, and 152. Qatar Airways, they're continuing to operate flight 150 and 152, but 148 has ended. Iberia took over that slot, so Iberia is now doing one of the 3 daily flights between Madrid and Doha. So pretty exciting though. Again, it's a new airline for Doha. It's a new partner airline of Qatar Airways. Well, they're not a new partner, but they're a new service for Doha. And I guess that's a good thing that you get more airlines serving the airport. It enhances, I guess, the connectivity amongst all the One World partners. So that's a really good thing. And speaking of One World partners, American Airlines is still here, albeit in a slightly altered form. If you remember in the last update, American was serving Doha with the 777s from New York JFK. So American started service to Doha in, I think it was 2022. That was a brand new route for American. They've never served Doha before that. So in 2022 they launched JFK, New York JFK to Doha on the 777-300ER. Later got down gauged to a 777-200, and then it became a 777-300ER again. So as of October 28th, I think it was, October 28th of 2023, American has ended the JFK to Doha flight. That JFK to Doha flight was actually replacing one of Qatar Airways' 3 daily flights between JFK and Doha. So Qatar Airways is back to 3 daily flights to JFK. We'll cover that in a few moments. But American Airlines, they ended their JFK flight, as I've said, and they actually shifted their Doha slot to Philadelphia. So American is now serving Doha from Philadelphia, not JFK. And Philadelphia is now served on the 787-9. So this 787-9 is headed back to Philadelphia as Flight 121. So American is serving Philadelphia. Unfortunately, that means Qatar Airways, they ended Philadelphia. So American basically took over the Philadelphia route from Qatar Airways. So American is serving Philly now and not JFK. And Qatar Airways is back to 3 daily flights into New York. So I think it's a good thing though. I like having American serve Doha from Philly. I am kind of sad though that Qatar ended Philadelphia because I really thought Philly was a unique route for them. But then again, Philadelphia is a huge hub for American, so it kind of makes sense on a connectivity aspect for them to have the route out of Philly as opposed to JFK. I would have preferred to see them do it from Charlotte because Charlotte doesn't get Qatar Airways at all, and Charlotte is one of their biggest hubs. So if they could do Charlotte to Doha at some point, that would be really, really cool. Or Phoenix to Doha might be a bit too long, but Charlotte, I would love to see that. And maybe Qatar Airways goes back to Philadelphia or something. But that'd be really cool. Let me know in the comments if you'd love to see American shift it to Charlotte and have Qatar Airways back in Philly or something like that. I don't know. It's probably not going to happen, but yeah, American is now doing a Philadelphia service out of Doha, which is cool. All right, next up we have the Airbus A350-900 for Qatar Airways. And this aircraft is pushing back with service out to Edinburgh, Scotland as Flight 29, came in earlier from Cape Town, South Africa as Flight 1372. And then next up we have another A350-900, this is A7ALD, this one is A7AME. A7ALD over here is making service out to London Heathrow as Flight number 7 and came in earlier from Washington Dulles as Flight 710. So they have 2 daily flights to Dulles. I didn't even know that. They have 1 flight on the 350-1000 and the other flight on the 350-900. So that's pretty cool. And then over here we have the A380, second one of the update. It's headed off to London Heathrow as Flight number 3 and came in from Sydney, Australia as Flight 909. So this aircraft actually got earlier this summer at the Airliners International Convention in Dallas. It's kind of an impulse buy. I didn't need it, but it's the Aviation 400 A380 mold. It's a beautiful mold, beautiful model, so I just kind of picked it up. Unfortunately, the ironic thing is this plane doesn't even fly anymore. This is A7 APA. Qatar Airways have 10 A380s in their fleet. Only 8 were reactivated, and the other 2, the former CEO announced that 2 of them will not be returning to service. So that's A7 APA, A7 APB. The first 2 380s that Qatar Airways got, those are not going to return to service. So that is unfortunate because this is A7 APA, as you can see. You can't see it, but that's the registration that they made. So this one is not coming back into service, but it's still a beautiful model. I had to put it in the update nonetheless. And here is the triple jetway, as you can see. So we have the 2 lower deck gates, the glass jetway, and then the upper deck jetway, as you can see, is there. It's the same one that I use in my O'Hare Terminal 5 diorama, so you can kind of recognize that. Of course, it doesn't really lead anywhere. It's just kind of going nowhere, but I think it's the thought that counts, you know? So you can appreciate that a little bit. So yeah, pretty cool setup. It looks really cool from like an angle. Like this angle, that looks super dope. Or this angle. That's pretty cool. So yeah, beautiful mold. Aviation 400 did an amazing job with their A380 mold, and really good model company. I have a couple 777s from them. I can't remember, the 350-1000 that you saw earlier, that's also by Aviation 400. Really, really nice models they make. So that's it with this side of Concourse C. Let's head across to the other side. That's basically all 777s. Alright, so I have 6 777-300ERs in my Qatar Airways collection, and I have all 6 of them lined up side by side. Did that on purpose, just so I could get that shot of all 6 of them next to each other. And the nice thing is every single plane in my Qatar Airways fleet, they're all unique tail numbers, so I don't have any repeats. I don't have 2 of the same exact tail number, which is pretty cool. So you have that it makes it a lot more realistic, a lot more unique. So we'll start off right here with A7BAA, the one world, or one of the 4 one world 333s. This aircraft is headed off to Athens, Greece as flight 203 and came in earlier from Dhaka, Bangladesh as flight 639. Next up is A7BED, getting loaded up with service out to Atlanta as flight 755 and came in earlier from Adelaide, Australia as flight 915. And the interesting thing about Adelaide is that they have actually 2 flights there technically per day. They have this flight 915, 914, that's nonstop Doha to Adelaide and back. And then they have another flight, 988 and 989, that's a combined flight. So it goes to Melbourne and then Melbourne to Adelaide, Adelaide back to Melbourne, Melbourne to Doha. And then they have another flight that's nonstop, Doha, Melbourne, Melbourne to Doha. But the only reason they have the stopover flight from Melbourne to Adelaide or whatever is I don't even know why they have that flight. So it's really confusing why they do that. But they have a separate nonstop to and from Melbourne. They have a separate nonstop to and from Adelaide. But then they have another flight, like I said, 988 and 989, that goes to Melbourne and then from Melbourne to Adelaide and then the reverse routing on the way back. It's really confusing, but it's something to do with the government of Australia restricting them, or I don't even know, but it's interesting. It's interesting. Next up is A7BEM, making service out to Frankfurt as flight 67 and came in earlier from Hangzhou, China as flight 891. And next up is a special airplane, A7BEL in the Formula One partnership livery, headed off to Chicago O'Hare as flight 725, came in from Karachi as flight 605 from Karachi. So yeah, that's a special model to me because I actually flew this exact plane from Doha to Karachi January 2022 as flight 604, and that was before it got this livery. I was actually, funny story, I was actually in Guatemala this past summer when I found out. Somebody sent me a picture of this plane painted in the special livery in Chicago, and I was like, what kind of livery is this? I had never seen this before. It was like 3 weeks before Qatar even announced this livery was a thing. But yeah, so they are a Formula One sponsor now, the Formula One airline sponsor. So you can see that the livery, I'm not a big fan of it, honestly. It looks like a graffiti paint job. I didn't even know what this was at first. That's actually the race car driver, the Formula One driver. It took me a while to realize that, but that's what that is right there. So yeah, this is the Aviation 400 new release. Really glad that I was able to pick this up because, again, I flew this exact same plane. And it's crazy how it's this exact plane that they chose to put the special livery on it. So that's kind of why I have it doing Chicago and Karachi, even though I didn't fly it from Chicago. But just really, really cool to have that there. Then speaking of airplanes that I flew from Chicago, next up is A7BAC, the special retro livery. And this aircraft is headed off to JFK in New York as flight 701 and came in from Manila, Philippines as flight 929. So I flew A7BAC from Chicago to Doha in 2013, long before it got the special livery, obviously, but it was the exact same plane. And this is another new model, actually. Last update, you saw the Phoenix version of the retro of this plane, but I recently sold that model and picked up this one, which is the JC Wings version. So much nicer. The mold is a lot better. It's just, it does the livery so much more justice. It's a beautiful model. Really glad I got it. There are a couple of inaccuracies though. I don't believe the wings are white on the actual thing, and I also believe the SATCOM is way too small in the front. You see that one? Like look at that one. You see the dish on it? It's a lot smaller on that one. So that's a bit of an inaccuracy there, but doesn't matter to me. It doesn't bother me too much. It's a beautiful model nonetheless. Really glad I got it. And last 333 is A7BAF, the One World, the second, or not the second, but the third one, right? A7BAA, A7BAB. There's this one, BAF, and then BAG is the fourth one. Sorry, cannot talk. Sorry, A7BAF here. This one is headed off to Seattle as flight 719 and came in from Bengaluru, India as flight 573. Perfect combo because I believe there's a lot of demand for service to Bengaluru from Seattle. And if you didn't know this, American was actually supposed to start flying from Seattle to Bengaluru at some point, but they kept postponing that flight, and I believe they've canceled it altogether. So kind of cool. It came from Bengaluru, headed off to Seattle. That's a nice combo. And then next, last aircraft for Concourse C, another One World. It's the A350-900 this time, And this plane came in from Islamabad, Pakistan as flight 633, headed off to Barcelona as flight 145. So, update about the 350s. If you've seen my recent videos, I think it was last year. No, sorry, earlier this year I made 2 videos about the A350 situation, the Airbus Qatar Airways situation. Basically, all of their 350s are back in service now because they got the issues resolved with Airbus. Airbus fixed all the paint issues, and basically they're all back in service now, which is great. And then owing to the leased airplanes, they have a bunch of like white 777s. I had one of those models last year. I sold it though, unfortunately, which sucks. I'd love to have that right now. But those are all still here. They're all ex-Cathay Pacific. A couple, I think one of them is ex-Virgin Australia. So they have all those leased 777s, and I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. I don't know if they have plans to fully repaint them into the, standard livery back there, or if they're going to keep them in their white livery. It's weird, but they have all those leased airplanes flying around. They just have a much bigger fleet than what they had previously, which is great, I guess. And again, all the 350s are pretty much back in service now, which is also good to see. Alright, so let me quickly apologize. I totally just now realized that I said that was Concourse C. That's not Concourse C. I said that like all in the last segment. This is all Concourse C. I apologize. This is actually Concourse E that we covered with the 350 there. That's Concourse D. That's nothing there. Nothing matters. And this is also Concourse E, I believe, the new extension. Again, D is more... There's a lot more gates that way. There's a lot more gates for E that way. It didn't have space for them. So, yeah. Let's cover these 5 new gates, though. We have 4 aircraft, though, so only 4 gates to cover, actually. First off, we have the 7879 for Qatar Airways, headed off to Oslo, Norway, as flight 175, right? 175? Yeah, and came in from Frankfurt as flight 72. So Oslo, like we covered with Finnair earlier in the video, that is the only city, I believe, in the Nordic region that Qatar Airways is flying to. All the other ones, the major ones, obviously, Stockholm, or I know Gothenburg. I think they fly to Gothenburg, right? Gothenburg, Sweden. They still fly there, but Stockholm, Copenhagen, and Helsinki, they're all taken over by Finnair. But I think Oslo and Gothenburg are still served by Qatar Airways. In the Nordic region, I say Nordic. Obviously, it's not a country for those that are unaware. The Nordic region refers to, Finland, and then the 3 Scandinavian countries, Norway, Sweden, Denmark. So that's, hopefully my geography is right. That's kind of what I'm referring to there. So that's 789 to Oslo. Sorry, moving on here. 777-200 LR. This came in, where'd this come from? Oh, DFW, Dallas Fort Worth as flight 732. Headed off to Sao Paulo, Brazil as flight 773. We have a 7878, which is new. You didn't get to see this one in the last update. I got this over the summer or something like that. This aircraft is headed off to Dublin, Ireland as flight 17. Came in from Moscow in Russia as flight 340. And last Qatar, oh no, we have one more. One more Qatar after this one. A330-300 headed off to Algiers in Algeria as flight 1379 and came in from Chongqing, China as flight 881. CKG, that's the city. So I didn't even know they flew these there until I looked it up. That's kind of brutal though. 8.5 hours on the A330-300 from Doha to CKG. I think it's Chongqing, that's how you say it. Because this is one of their oldest planes and they're flying it daily over there. It's that's tough. So yeah, all right. So those are all the Qatar Airways passenger aircraft. We have one more cargo we'll get to in a few moments. Let's do the hard stands first. We'll start off over here with this Air Arabia. Or hold on here. Air Arabia A320. Can you see it better? Hold on. This aircraft is here from Sharjah as flight 135, just getting offloaded. And then we have this blank A321. I had it operating for Indigo last time. Indigo has so many flights to Doha, and I'm really, really sorry that I don't have any Indigo planes to put in here. I've been trying to get, literally, I'm not kidding, I've been trying to get an Indigo model for so long, but I always end up just canceling it and just deciding not to buy it. So I apologize. It's not Indigo this time. It's operating for Salam Air, which is a Omani low-cost airline. This came from Muscat as flight 237, going back to Muscat later as flight 238. So Salam Air, they have a couple of A321 Neos. They have some ex-Interjet ones, and they have some of their actual, some painted in their actual livery. So this is a standard 321. It's not a Neo, but Just thought it'd be fun to operate it for Salam Air 321neo, so that's what that's doing. Alright, and then let's go to the other side real quick. Alright, sorry about that. I should have covered this earlier, but well, we're here, so it doesn't matter, I guess. It's the Iran Air Airbus A300. This came in from Shiraz as flight 625. It's currently boarding for the return flight to Shiraz as flight 624. So Iran Air doesn't fly these to Doha. They fly the 319 and the Airbus A320. And they don't even fly to Tehran or Mashhad. They only fly to Shiraz and Lar. I believe I pronounced that right. So those two cities, I think they're in the south of Iran, somewhere there. I could be totally wrong, but they fly to only Shiraz and Lar from Doha on the 319 and 320. So I don't have either of those. So we have the 300 though, and it's way cooler. So that's why it's here. Pretty cool setup though. We got the air stairs, we got the buses, we got the cargo, we got the 300. Pretty cool. So that's going back to Shiraz, which is also served by Qatar Airways on the A320. Alright, last two planes here on the taxiway. We have the Gulf Air 787-9 right here. This is taxiing in after arrival from Bahrain as flight 524. Now this is definitely, this definitely doesn't fly to Doha in real life. Gulf Air fly 320s and 320 neos, whatever, to Doha, because Bahrain to Doha is literally like a 25-minute flight. So yeah, 789 and 25-minute flight. Be cool to see in real life, but at the moment they don't do that. So that's the closest I could do. It's the only Gulf Air. I could have put my 321, but that thing is so disgusting to look at. I don't think, because it's a custom model that I painted myself, I don't want to put that. So yeah, Gulf Air 789 from Bahrain. Last but not least, I didn't have this last time either. This model I also picked up at the Airliners convention in Dallas back in June with the 380 back there. It is my Qatar Airways Cargo 777-200 freighter, or 777 freighter I should say. Just landed taxiing to the stand, came in from Chicago Rockford, Illinois, via Munich as flight 8031. That's a once a week route. They fly to Rockford with a stopover in Munich each way. Pretty cool. That's the main reason why I bought this model, because I've seen it in Rockford so many times. And it comes in just once a week on Mondays, like I said. And I am planning to do a Rockford update sometime late in the next couple of weeks. So best be sure this plane is going to be in that video. So yeah, that's my only Qatar cargo plane, but it's good to have it because, you know, it is a Qatar Airways plane and I have space to put it, so might as well, right? So they have a lot of flights actually, Qatar Airways cargo. I should have seen that coming, but they have a huge fleet and there are so many flights they operate per day on both the 777 freighter and the 747-8. Mostly 777s because I think they only have the 2 or 3 748 freighters, but they have a bunch of 777 freighters. It's pretty impressive how many flights they got every day on these things. So yeah, that's it for all the planes. Let's go ahead and conclude this update finally. Alright, so that finally brings us to the end of this huge Doha Hamad International Airport update. This took me so long to film. I started filming this at 8:14 p.m. and look what time it is right now. It is 10:14. Took me 2 hours exactly to film this, and that's mainly because the intro took me at least 30 minutes. That took a long time. I don't know, this video was pretty tough to film. It was pretty brutal. So hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. Hope you learned something. If you did, smash that like button for your boy, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I really enjoyed putting this diorama together. Again, filming this was pretty brutal, but whatever, it's fine. The things I do for the content, you know what I mean? So like I mentioned earlier in the video, I won't be doing Doha as a regular update series, I'm afraid, because this uses up, let me zoom out so you can see this. It uses up so many resources that I need for other airports, like this thing, you know, the wooden thing. That's my Terminal 5 thing. That's the main part of my O'Hare Terminal 5. All 3 of these tables that you see here, I use them for Terminal 5 as well. So of course Terminal 5 is the mainstay of this channel. People love that airport, those airport updates, so I need to keep those going for you all, and I can't have Doha and O'Hare Terminal 5 at the same time. It's just too much shared resources, too much time to set up. This took me about an hour yesterday to set up, which isn't bad, but during the semester, right, that'll take up a lot of extra time. I'm only doing this now that I'm on winter break for the next month or so. Expect some more one-off updates coming throughout the next couple of weeks. I'm trying to do Rockford, like I said, again, Chicago Rockford. Also planning St. Louis. I'm considering Guatemala City. Let's see what else. Atlanta at some point. Not this winter break, but Atlanta will come at some point. One of the concourses. O'Hare Terminal 3 Retro. That's coming up soon, hopefully. And those are all that I have for now. If you have any recommendations, let me know. But that was it. Doha Hamad International Airport, my second update. That is a wrap. So thank you all once again for sticking around till the end. Take care, everybody, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.